Good afternoon, and welcome back to our Sutrathon here at Chenrezig Institute, where we're optimizing the merits of the Days of Miracles. A few more days to go till Big Day Saturday, Chotrul Du Chen. 100 million times the merit, all our meritorious activities or our Dharma activities, all our virtuous states of mind. So holding that in mind and calling to mind anyone you wish to pray for, anyone whose name has been given to pray to you to pray for, anyone who's sick and recently passed away, and dedicating, may whoever sees, hears, touches, reads, remembers or recites this holy prayer, which is the prayer of the exalted Mahayana Sutra of the wisdom gone beyond, called the Vajra Cutter Sutra. May they be freed from rebirth in the lower realms, always enjoy perfect conditions for practicing the Dharma, and never be separated from perfect spiritual teachers. May they quickly develop bodhicitta and immediately attain enlightenment for the sake of all mother sentient beings. So we can hold in mind all our kind mother sentient beings, those dear to us, those far, those more distant, more unfamiliar, and particularly those we have difficulty with, and holding them, offering them this practice of the Vajra Cutter Sutra. I prostrate to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling in Shravasti in the grove of Prince Jeta, in the garden of Anathapindada, together with a great Sangha of bhikshus of 1,250 bhikshus and a great many bodhisattva mahasattvas. Then in the morning, having put on the lower and upper Dharma robes and carried the begging bowl, the Bhagavan entered the great city of Shravasti to request alms. Then having gone to the great city of Shravasti to request alms, the Bhagavan afterwards enjoyed the alms food, and having performed the activity of food, since he had given up alms of later food, put away the begging bowl and upper robe. He washed his feet, sat upon the prepared cushion, and having assumed the cross-legged posture, straightened the body upright and placed the mindfulness in front. Then many bhikshus approached to the place where the Bhagavan was, and having reached there, bowing their heads to the Bhagavan's feet, circumambulated 3 times and sat to one side. Also at that time, the Venerable Subhuti, joining that very assembly, sat down. Then the Venerable Subhuti rose from that seat, placed the upper robe over one shoulder, set his right knee on the ground, bowed, joining the palms towards the Bhagavan, and said this to the Bhagavan: Bhagavan, the extent to which the Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly enlightened Buddha, has benefited the Bodhisattva Mahasattva with highest benefit, the extent to which the Tathagata has entrusted the Bodhisattva Mahasattva with highest entrustment. Bhagavan, it is astonishing. Sugata, it is astonishing. Bhagavan, how should one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle abide? How practice? How control the mind? That was said, and the Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, well said, Subhuti. It is so, it is so. The Tathagata has benefited the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas with the highest benefit. The Tathagata has entrusted the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas with the highest entrustment. Subhuti, therefore, listen and properly retain it in mind, and I will explain to you how one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should abide, how practice, how control the mind. Having replied, Bhagavan, so be it, the Venerable Subhuti listened in accordance with the Bhagavan, and the Bhagavan said this: Subhuti, here, one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should generate the mind of enlightenment, thinking this: as many as are included in the category of sentient beings born from egg, born from the womb, born from heat and moisture, born miraculously, with form, without form, with discrimination, without discrimination, but not without subtle discrimination, the realm of sentient beings, as many as are designated by imputation as sentient beings, All those I shall cause to pass completely beyond sorrow into the realm of nirvana without remainder of the aggregates. Although limitless sentient beings have thus been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow, no sentient being whatsoever has been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow. Why is that? Subhuti, because if a bodhisattva engages in discriminating a sentient being, he's not to be called a bodhisattva. Why is that? Subhuti, if anyone engages in discriminating a sentient being, or engages in discriminating a living being, or engages in discriminating a person, they are not to be called a bodhisattva. Further, Subhuti, a bodhisattva gives a gift without abiding in a thing, gives a gift without abiding in any phenomenon whatsoever. A gift should be given not abiding in visual form, nor should a gift be not given abiding in sound, smell, taste, tactility, or phenomenon. Subhuti, without abiding in discriminating anything whatsoever as any sign, thus does a bodhisattva give a gift. Why is that, Subhuti? Because the heap of merit of the bodhisattva who gives a gift without abiding, Subhuti, is not easy to take the measure of. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Do you think it is easy to take the measure of space in the east? Subhuti replied, Bhagawan, it is not so. The Bhagawan said, Subhuti, similarly, do you think it is easy to take the measure of space in the south, west, north, above, below, or intermediate directions and the 10 directions? Subhuti replied, Bhagawan, it is not so. The Bhagawan said, Subhuti, similarly, the heap of merit of that bodhisattva who gives a gift without abiding is also not easy to take the measure of. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one viewed as the Tathagata due to the perfect marks. Subhuti replied, Bhagawan, it is not so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Why is that? Because that itself, which the Tathagata call perfect marks, are not perfect marks. He replied thus, and the Bhagavan said this to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, to the degree there are perfect marks, to that degree there is deception. To the degree there are no perfect marks, to that degree there is no deception. Thus view the Tathagata as marks and no marks. He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, in the future period at the end of the 500, when the holy Dharma will totally perish, will any sentient being produce correct discrimination upon the words of sutras such as this being explained? The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, do not say what you have said. In the future period at the end of the 500, when the holy Dharma will totally perish, will any sentient beings produce correct discrimination upon the words of sutras such as this being explained? Moreover, Subhuti, in the future period, at the end of the 500, when the holy Dharma will totally perish, there will be bodhisattva mahasattvas endowed with morality, endowed with qualities, endowed with wisdom. Subhuti, those bodhisattva mahasattvas, moreover, will not have made homage to just a single Buddha. They will not have produced roots of virtue to just a single Buddha. Subhuti, there will be bodhisattva mahasattvas who have made homage to many hundreds of thousands of Buddhas and produced roots of virtue to many hundreds of thousands of Buddhas. Subhuti, those who will acquire merely a single mind of faith upon the words of such sutras as this being explained. Subhuti, the Tathagata knows. Subhuti, they are seen by the Tathagata. Subhuti, all those sentient beings will produce and perfect collect an unfathomable heap of merit. Why is that? Subhuti, because those bodhisattva mahasattvas will not engage in discriminating a self, and want to discriminate a sentient being, will not discriminate a living being, will not engage in discriminating a person. Subhuti, those bodhisattva mahasattvas will not engage in discriminating phenomena, nor discriminating non-phenomena, nor will they engage in discrimination or non-discrimination. Why is that? Subhuti, because if those bodhisattva mahasattvas engage in discriminating phenomena, that itself would be of them grasping a self and grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Because even if they engage in discriminating phenomena as non-existent, that would be of them grasping a self and grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Why is that? Further, Subhuti, because a bodhisattva should not wrongly grasp phenomena nor grasp non-phenomena. Therefore, thinking of that, the Tathagata said, if those who know this Dharma treatise as like a boat, even Dharmas should be given up, what need is there to mention non-Dharmas? Further, the Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, exist whatsoever? Has any Dharma been taught by the Tathagata? He said that. And the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, as I understand this meaning that was taught by the Bhagavan, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. That Dharma that was taught by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. Why is that? Because any Dharma manifestly and completely realized or taught by the Tathagata is not to be grasped, to be expressed, is not Dharma, nor is it non-Dharma. Why is that? Because Arya beings are differentiated by the uncompounded. The Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If some son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage completely filled this billionfold world system with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts, do you think that son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an immense heap of merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, immense, Sugata, immense. That son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an immense heap of merit on that basis. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that very heap of merit is not a heap. Therefore, the Tathagata says, heap of merit, heap of merit. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who completely filling this billionfold world system with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts, if someone, having taken even as little as 1 stanza or 4 lines from this discourse of Dharma, also were to explain and correctly and thoroughly teach it to others on that basis, the heap of merit produced would be much greater, incalculable, unfathomable. Why is that? Subhuti, because the unsurpassable, perfect, completed enlightenment of the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddhas, arises from, and in the, because the Buddha Dharma called Dharmas are those taught by the Tathagata as non-existent. Therefore, they are called Buddha Dharmas. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the stream enterer think I have attained the result of a stream enterer? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Bhagavan, because one does not enter into anything whatsoever. Therefore, one is called stream enterer. One has not entered into form, nor entered into sound, nor into smell, nor into taste, nor into tactility, nor entered into a phenomenon. Therefore, one is called stream enterer. Bhagavan, if that stream enterer were to think, I have attained the result of stream enterer, that itself would be grasping of that as a self, grasping as a sentient being, grasping as a living being, grasping as a person. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the once returner think, I have attained the result of a once returner? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon of entry into the state of a once returner does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, one says once returner. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the non-returner think I have attained the result of non-returner? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon of entry into the state of a non-returner does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, one says non-returner. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Arhat think I have attained the result of Arhatship? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon called Arhat does not exist whatsoever. Bhagavan, if the Arhat were to think I have attained the result of Arhatship, that itself would be grasping of that as a self, grasping as a sentient being, grasping as a living being, grasping as a person. Bhagavan, I was declared by the Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, as the foremost of those who abide without afflictions. Bhagavan, I am an Arhat, free of attachment, but Bhagavan, I do not think I am an Arhat. Bhagavan, if I were to think I have attained Arhatship, the Tathagata would not have made the prediction about me, saying the son of the lineage Subhuti is the foremost of those who abide without afflictions. Since not abiding in anything whatsoever, he abides without affliction. He abides without affliction. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does that Dharma that was received by the Tathagata, from the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha Dipankara, exist whatsoever? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. That Dharma that was received by the Tathagata from the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha Dipankara, does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, if some bodhisattvas were to say, I shall actualize arranged fields, they would speak untruly. Why is that? Subhuti, because arranged fields, called arranged fields, those arrangements are taught by the Tathagata as non-existent. Therefore, they are called arranged fields. Subhuti, therefore, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva thus should generate the mind without abiding, should generate the mind not abiding in anything. They should generate the mind not abiding in form, should generate mind not abiding in sound, smell, taste, tactility, or phenomena. Subhuti, it is like this. If, for example, the body of a being were to become thus, were to become like this, as big as Sumuru, the king of mountains, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Would that body be big? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, that body would be big. Sugata, that body would be big. Why is that? Because it is taught by the Tathagata as not being a thing. Therefore, it is called a body. Since it is taught by the Tathagata as not being a thing, therefore it is called a big body. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If there were also as many Ganges rivers as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges, would their grains of sand be many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, if those very Ganges rivers were many, there is no need to mention their grains of sand. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, you should appreciate, you should understand. If some man or woman, completely filling with the 7 kinds of precious things, that many world systems as there are grains of sand of those river Ganges, were to offer that to the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddhas, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Would that man or woman produce much merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan much, Sugata much. The man or woman would produce much merit on that basis. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, compared to someone who completely filling that many world systems with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts to the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddhas, if someone, having taken even as little as a stanza of 4 lines from the discourse of Dharma, were to explain it and correctly and thoroughly teach it also to others on that basis, the merit that itself would produce would be much greater, incalculable, unfathomable. Further, Subhuti, if at whatever place on earth even a stanza of 4 lines from this discourse on Dharma is recited or taught, that place on earth is a real shrine of the world, with devas, humans, and asuras. What need to mention that whoever takes up this discourse of Dharma, memorizes, reads, understands, and properly undertakes it to mind, will be most astonishing. At that place on earth, the teacher resides. Other levels of gurus also abide. He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, what is the name of this discourse of Dharma? How should it be remembered? He said that, and the Bhagavan replied to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, the name of this Dharma discourse is the wisdom gone beyond. It should be remembered like that. Why is that? Subhuti, because the very same wisdom gone beyond that is taught by the Tathagata is not gone beyond, therefore it is called wisdom gone beyond. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Dharma that is taught by the Tathagata exist whatsoever? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, the Dharma is taught by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Are the quantities of particles of earth that exist in billion-fold world systems many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, the particles of earth are many. Sugata, they are many. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which is a particle of earth was taught by the Tathagata as not being a particle, therefore it is called particle of earth. That which is a world system was taught by the Tathagata as not being a world system, therefore it is called a world system. The Tathagata said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Is one to be viewed as the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha due to those 32 marks of a great being? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Bhagavan, because the 32 marks of a great being that are taught by the Tathagata are taught by the Tathagata as no marks, therefore they are called 32 marks of the Tathagata. The Bhagavan said, therefore Subhuti, compared with some man or woman, completely giving up the body, numbering the grains of sand of the river Ganges, if someone taking even as little as a stanza or 4 lines from this discourse of Dharma also were to teach it to others, they would produce on that basis many greater merits, incalculable, unfathomable. Therefore, the Venerable Subhuti, due to the impact of the Dharma, shed tears. Having wiped away the tears, he replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, this discourse on Dharma taught thus by the Tathagata, Bhagavan, is astonishing. Sukata, it is astonishing. Bhagavan, since my production of exalted wisdom, I have never before heard this discourse on Dharma. Bhagavan, those sentient beings who will produce correct discrimination upon the sutra being explained will be most astonishing. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which is correct discrimination is not discrimination. Therefore, correct discrimination was taught by the Tathagata saying correct discrimination. Bhagavan, upon this Dharma discourse being explained, that I imagine and appreciate is not astonishing to me. Bhagavan, in the final time, in the final age, at the end of the 500, those sentient beings who take up this Dharma discourse, memorize, read, and understand it will be most astonishing. Furthermore, Bhagavan, they will not engage in discriminating a self, will not engage in discriminating a sentient being, discriminating a living being, discriminating a person. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that itself, which is discrimination as a self, discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, and discrimination as a person is not discrimination. Why is that? Because the Bhagavan, the Buddha Bhagavans, are free of all discriminations. He said that. And the Bhagavan replied to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, it is so, it is so. Upon the sutra being explained, those sentient beings who are unafraid, unterrified, and will not become terrified will be most astonishing. Why is that, Subhuti? Because this highest wisdom gone beyond, taught by the Tathagata, the highest wisdom gone beyond that is taught by the Tathagata, was also taught by unfathomable Buddha Bhagavans. Therefore, it is called highest wisdom gone beyond. Further, Subhuti, that itself, which is the patience gone beyond of the Tathagata, has not gone beyond. Why is that? Subhuti, because when the king of Kalinga cut off my limbs and appendages at that time, there did not arise in me discrimination as a self, discrimination as a sentient being, discriminating as a living being, discrimination as a person. And in me there was no discrimination whatsoever, yet there was also no non-discrimination. Why is that? Subhuti, because if at that time there had been discrimination in me as a self, at that time there would also have arisen discrimination of malice. If there had arisen discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, discrimination as a person, at that time there would also have arisen discrimination of malice. Subhuti, I know with clairvoyance that in the past period during 500 lifetimes, I was the rishi called preacher of patience. Even then, there did not arise in me the discrimination as a self. There did not arise the discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, discrimination as a person. Subhuti, therefore, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, completely abandoning all discrimination, should generate the mind for unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. One should generate the mind not abiding in form. One should generate the mind not abiding in sound, smell, taste, tactility, or phenomenon. One should generate the mind not abiding in non-phenomenon either. One should generate the mind not abiding in anything whatsoever. Why is that? Because that itself, which is abiding, does not abide. Therefore, the Tathagata taught, the Bodhisattva should give gifts, not abiding. Further, Subhuti, the Bodhisattva, should thus totally give away gifts for the welfare of all sentient beings. However, that itself, which is discrimination as a sentient being, is non-discrimination. Those themselves who were taught by the Tathagata saying all sentient beings also do not exist. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Tathagata teaches reality, teaches truth, teaches what is. The Tathagata teaches what is without error. Further, Subhuti, the Dharma that is manifestly and completely realized or shown by the Tathagata has neither truth nor falsity. Subhuti, it is like this. For example, if a man with eyes has entered darkness, he does not see anything whatsoever. Likewise, should one view the Bodhisattva who totally gives up a gift by falling into anything. Subhuti, it is like this. For example, upon dawn and the sun rising, a man with eyes sees various kinds of forms. Likewise, should one view the Bodhisattva who totally gives up a gift by not falling into anything. Further, Subhuti, those sons of the lineage or daughters of the lineage who take up the Dharma discourse, memorize, read, understand, and correctly and thoroughly teach it to others in detail, are known by the Tathagata. They are seen by the Tathagata. All those sentient beings will produce an unfathomable heap of merit. Further, Subhuti, compared to some man or woman at that time of dawn, totally giving up bodies numbering the grains of sand of the river Ganges, also totally giving up bodies numbering the grains of sand of the river Ganges at the time of midday and evening, in such number totally giving up bodies for many hundreds of thousands of 10 million, 100 billion eons. If someone having heard this Dharma discourse will not reject it, if they themselves would produce much greater merit on that basis, incalculable, unfathomable, what need to mention someone who, having written it in letters, takes it up, memorizes, reads, understands, and correctly and thoroughly teaches it to others in detail. Further, Subhuti, this Dharma discourse is unimaginable and incomparable. This Dharma discourse was taught by the Tathagata for the benefit of sentient beings who have correctly entered into the supreme vehicle, the welfare of sentient beings who have correctly entered into the best vehicle. Those who take up this Dharma discourse, memorize, read, understand, and correctly and thoroughly teach it to others in detail are known by the Tathagata. They are seen by the Tathagata. All those sentient beings will be endowed with an unfathomable heap of merit. Being endowed with an unimaginable heap of merit, incomparable, immeasurable, and limitless, all those sentient beings will hold my enlightenment on the shoulder. Why is that? Subhuti, this Dharma discourse is unable to be heard by those who appreciate the inferior, by those viewing a self, by those viewing a sentient being, by those viewing a living being, and those viewing a person are unable to hear, to take up, to memorize, to read, and to understand, because that cannot be. Further, Subhuti, at whatever place on earth this sutra is taught, that place on earth will become worthy to be paid homage by the world with devas, humans, and assurers. That place on earth will become worthy as an object of prostration and worthy as an object of circumambulation. That place on earth will become a shrine. Subhuti, whatever son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage takes up these words of a sutra like this, memorizes, reads, and understands, they will be tormented, will be intensely tormented. Why is that? Subhuti, because whatever non-virtuous actions of former lifetimes that were committed by those sentient beings, that would bring rebirth in the lower realms due to torment in this very life, those non-virtuous actions of former lifetimes will be purified, and they will also attain the enlightenment of a Buddha. Subhuti, I know with clairvoyance that in the past period, in even more countless eons, much beyond, even beyond the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, Dipankara, there were 84,100,000 of 10 million, 100 billion Buddhas whom I pleased, and having pleased, did not upset. Subhuti, from whatever I did, having pleased and not having upset those Buddha Bhagawans, and in the future period, at the end of the 500, from someone taking up this sutra, memorizing, reading, and understanding, Subhuti, compared to the heap of merit, the former heap of merit does not approach even 100th part, 1,000th part, 100,000th part. It does not withstand enumeration, measure, calculation, similarity, equivalence, or comparison. Subhuti, at that time, the son of the lineage or daughters of the lineage will receive a quantity of heap of merit that, if I were to express the heap of merit of those sons of the lineage and daughters of the lineage, sentient beings would go mad, would be disturbed. Further, Subhuti, this Dharma discourse being unimaginable, its maturation indeed should also be known as unimaginable. Then the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagawan, Bhagawan, how should one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle abide? How practice, how control the mind? The Bhagawan said, Subhuti, here, one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should generate the mind thinkingness. I shall cause all sentient beings to pass completely beyond sorrow into the realm of nirvana without remainder of the aggregates. Although sentient beings were caused to pass completely beyond sorrow like that, no sentient being whatsoever was caused to pass beyond sorrow. Why is that? Subhuti, because if a bodhisattva engages in discriminating a sentient being, he is not to be called a bodhisattva. Also, if he engages in discriminating a person, he is not to be called a bodhisattva. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Dharma called one who has correctly entered the bodhisattva vehicle does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, from the Tathagata Dipankara, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment exist whatsoever? He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagawan, Bhagawan, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, from the Tathagata Dipankara, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment does not exist whatsoever. He said that, and the Bhagawan replied to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, it is so. That Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, from the Tathagata Dipankara, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata were to exist at all, the Tathagata Dipankara would not have made the prediction to me saying, Young Brahman, in a future period, you will become the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha called Shakyamuni. Subhuti, thus, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, the Tathagata Dipankara made the prediction to me saying, Young Brahman, in a future period, you will become the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha called Shakyamuni. Why is that? Because, Subhuti, Tathagata is an epithet of the suchness of reality. Subhuti, if someone were to say the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, manifestly and completely realized unsurpassable, perfect and complete enlightenment, they would speak wrongly. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata has neither truth nor falsity. Therefore, all Dharmas are Buddha Dharmas was taught by the Tathagata. Subhuti, all Dharmas, all those are non-Dharmas. Therefore, it is said all Dharmas are non-Dharmas. Subhuti, it is like this. For example, like a human endowed with a body, and the body became large. The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, that taught by the Tathagata, a human endowed with a body and a large body, is taught by the Tathagata as not being a body. Therefore, endowed with a body and a large body is said. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so. If some bodhisattva were to say, I shall cause sentient beings to completely pass beyond sorrow, he should not be called bodhisattva. Why is that? Subhuti, does the Dharma that is called bodhisattva exist whatsoever? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it does not. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, therefore it was taught by the Tathagata that all dharmas are without a sentient being, without a living being, without a person. Subhuti, if some bodhisattvas were to say, I shall actualize arranged fields, he too should be expressed similarly. Why is that? Subhuti, because the arranged fields called arranged fields are those taught by the Tathagata as non-arranged. Therefore, they are called arranged fields. Subhuti, whatever bodhisattva appreciates the dharmas are selfless, saying dharmas are selfless, he is expressed by the Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, as a bodhisattva called a bodhisattva. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the flesh eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the flesh eye. Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the divine eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the divine eye. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the wisdom eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the wisdom eye. The Tathagata said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the Dharma eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the Dharma eye. The Tathagata said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the Buddha eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the Buddha eye. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If there being also just as many Ganges rivers as the grains of sand in the river Ganges, there were just as many world systems as there are grains of sands of those, would those world systems be many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The world systems would be many. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, as many sentient beings as exist in those world systems, I totally know their continuum of consciousness of different thoughts. Why is that? Subhuti, because a so-called continuum of consciousness is that taught by the Tathagata as a non-continuum. Therefore, it is called a continuum of consciousness. Why is that? Subhuti, because past consciousness does not exist as an observable, nor does future consciousness exist as an observable, nor does present consciousness exist as an observable. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If someone completely filling the billion-fold world systems with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts, do you think that son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an enormous heap of merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, enormous. Sugata, enormous. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so. It is so that son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an enormous heap of merit on that basis. Subhuti, if a heap of merit were a heap of merit, the Tathagatas will not have taught a heap of merit called a heap of merit. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Should one be viewed as the Tathagata due to total achievement of the form body? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. One should not be viewed as the Tathagata due to total achievement of the form body. Why is that? Bhagavan, because total achievement of the form body is that taught by the Tathagata as not being total achievement. Therefore, it is called total achievement of the form body. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Is one to be viewed as Tathagata due to perfect marks? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. One is not to be viewed as Tathagata due to perfect marks. Why is that? Because that which was taught by the Tathagata as being perfect marks was taught by the Tathagata as not being perfect marks, therefore they are called perfect marks. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If it is thought that the Tathagata considers the Dharma is demonstrated by me, Subhuti, do not view it like that, because the Dharma that is demonstrated by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if someone were to say the Dharma is demonstrated by the Tathagata, Subhuti, he would deprecate me since non-existent and wrongly seized. Why is that? Subhuti, because that demonstrated Dharma, called demonstrated Dharma, which is referred to saying demonstrated Dharma, does not exist whatsoever. Then the Venerable Subhuti said to the Bhagawan, Bhagawan, in the future period, will there be any sentient beings who have heard this demonstration of such a Dharma as this, will clearly believe? The Bhagawan said, Subhuti, they are not sentient beings nor non-sentient beings. Why is that? Subhuti, so-called sentient beings, because they were taught by the Tathagata as non-sentient beings, therefore are called sentient beings. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, exist whatsoever? The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagawan, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagawan said, Subhuti, it is so. For it, even the least Dharma does not exist and is not observed. Therefore, it is called unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. Further, Subhuti, the Dharma is equivalent, since for it, inequivalence does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, it is called unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment. That unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, equivalent as selfless, without sentient beings, without living beings, without person, is manifestly and completely realized through all virtuous dharmas. Subhuti, virtuous dharmas, called virtuous dharmas, they, taught by the Tathagata as non-dharmas, are therefore called virtuous dharmas. Further, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage collecting a heap of the 7 types of precious things, about equaling whatever Sumeru, king of mountains, exists in a billion world systems and giving gifts. If someone, having taken up even as little as a stanza or 4 lines from this wisdom gone beyond, were to teach it to others, Subhuti, compared to this heap of merit, the former heap of merit, having not approached even 100th part, does not withstand comparison. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If it is thought that the Tathagata considers sentient beings are liberated by me, Subhuti, do not view it like that. Why is that? Subhuti, because those sentient beings who are liberated by the Tathagata do not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if some sentient being were to be liberated by the Tathagata, that itself would be of the Tathagata grasping a self, grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Subhuti, so-called grasping a self, that is taught by the Tathagata as non-grasping, yet that is grasped by childish, ordinary beings. Subhuti, so-called childish ordinary beings, they were taught by the Tathagata as just non-beings. Therefore, they are called childish ordinary beings. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Is one to be viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks? Subhuti replied, Bhagawan, it is not so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Bhagawan said, Subhuti, it is so, it is so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Subhuti, if one were to be viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks, even a Chakravartin king would be the Tathagata. Therefore, one is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Then the Venerable Subhuti said to the Bhagawan, Bhagawan, as I understand the meaning of what the Bhagawan has said, one is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Then these verses were spoken by the Bhagawan at that time. Whoever sees me as form, whoever knows me as sound, having wrongly engaged by abandoning those beings, do not see me. The Buddhas are Dharmata, viewed. The guides are the Dharmakaya. Since Dharmata is not to be known, it is unable to be known. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one grasps that the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, is due to perfect marks, Subhuti, you should not view so. For Subhuti, the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, does not manifestly and completely realize unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment due to perfect marks. Subhuti, if one grasps that some Dharma has been designated as destroyed or annihilated by those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle, Subhuti, it should not be viewed so. Those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle have not designated any Dharma whatsoever as destroyed or annihilated. Further, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who completely filling the 7 kinds of precious things, as many world systems as there are grains of sand or the river Ganges, were to give gifts. If any bodhisattvas attained forbearance, that dharmas are selfless and unproduced, on that basis the heap of merit they themselves would produce would be much greater. Further, Subhuti, a heap of merit should not be acquired by the bodhisattvas. The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, should not a heap of merit be acquired by the bodhisattva? The bodhisattva said, the Bhagavan said, Subhuti, acquire, not wrongly grasp. Therefore, it is called acquire. Subhuti, if someone says the Tathagata goes or comes or stands or sits or lies down, he does not understand the meaning explained by me. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Tathagata, the one gone thus, does not go anywhere, nor does he come from anywhere. Therefore, one says, the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha. Further, Subhuti, if son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage were to render as many atoms of earth as exist in a billionfold world systems, like this, for example, into powder, like a collection of subtle atoms. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Would that collection of subtlest atoms be many? Subhuti replied, Bhagwan, it is so, that collection of subtlest atoms would be many. Why is that? Bhagwan, because if there were a collection, the Bhagwan would not have said collection of subtlest atoms. Why is that? Because that collection of subtlest atoms that was taught by the Bhagavan was taught by the Tathagata as no collection. Therefore, one says collection of subtlest atoms. That billionfold world systems that was taught by the Tathagata was taught by the Tathagata as no system. Therefore, one says billionfold world system. Why is that? Bhagavan, because if there were to be a world system that itself would be grasping a solid thing, that taught by the Tathagata as grasping a solid thing was taught by the Tathagata as no grasping. Therefore, one says grasping a solid thing. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, grasping a solid thing is itself a convention. That Dharma does not exist as expressed, yet it is grasped by ordinary childish beings. Subhuti, if someone were to say viewing as a self was taught by the Tathagata, and viewing as a sentient being, viewing as a living being, viewing as a person was taught by the Tathagata, Subhuti, would that be spoken by right speech? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it would not. Sugata, it would not. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which was taught by the Tathagata as viewing as a self was taught by the Tathagata as no viewing. Therefore, one says viewing as a self. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should know, should view, should appreciate all dharmas like this. They should appreciate like this, not abiding whatsoever in any discrimination as a dharma. Why is that? Subhuti, because discrimination as a dharma, called discrimination as a dharma, is taught by the Tathagata as non-discrimination. Therefore, one says discrimination as a dharma. Further, Subhuti, compared to any bodhisattva, mahasattva who completely filling unfathomable and incalculable world systems with the 7 kinds of precious things were to give gifts, if any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who, having taken as little as a stanza or 4 lines from this perfection of wisdom, were to memorize it, or read or understand, or correctly and thoroughly teach it to others in detail, on that basis, the merit he himself would produce would be more incalculable, unfathomable. How should one correctly and thoroughly teach? Just how one would not correctly and thoroughly teach. Therefore, one says correctly and thoroughly teach. As a star, a visual aberration, a lamp, an illusion, dew, a bubble, a dream. lightning, and a cloud. View all the compounded like that. That having been said by the Bhagavan, the elder Subhuti, those bodhisattvas, the fourfold disciples, bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas, and upasikas, and the world with devas, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, overjoyed, highly praised that taught by the Bhagavan. The exalted Mahayana Sutra on the wisdom gone beyond, called the Vajra Cutter, is concluded. So then, having recited the Vajra Cutter Sutra, we now turn to one of the protective prayers that we do here on a daily basis, the praise of six-arm protector Mahakala. So we do along with the dedications of all those we've been asked to pray for, all those whose names have been given us to pray for, those suffering life and or being encountering life and health obstacles, all those who have died in the past 49 days, all those who are in the process of, the death process, and of course, all sentient beings existing on every atom of space and thinking, holding, those specific ones for you, precious and dear in your heart. For myself, I'd like to dedicate for Daryl, who's one of our Liberation Prison Project students who post-release for some time now and had a very serious major surgery yesterday, and so may he return to full health and well-being. Om Yoshe Chen Rezik La Chag Selo Zabdu Danche Dinan Yakanyen Nampo Chenpo Tage Shanta Chen Dragu Yimping Yempa Yempa Gen Yapu Dugu Bawa Tweng Washin Tama Dama Rune Jaktu To Yompo Topa Dani Dung Se Sun Deshing Chapa June Chiwa Je Drampo Sheni Chewa Nampa Zi Chanson Drapo Ultra Gendu Ba Ua Shindu Raye Lake Pashu, Chiwo Miku Giffy Gap Tab 10. Dragshaw Miko Nanchu Su Sel Chain, Linchin Tukam Nala Ula again. Shinla Toma Tunga Tempe Te, Powden Chadu Pala Chad, Solo Sange Tempan Yempo Sung Wadang, Control Gopan Yopo Topatan, Dacho Ponlam Kodam Chainam Ki, Kene Bache Tamche Shiwadang. Chidu Nudu Sel Du So Say Chen Rezik La Chag Sero Zabde Danche Binam Yankanyen Nampo Tempo Tufi Sunta Ten Chadu Gyomen Gyampa Dimpa Gen Yapo Chiku Bawa Tweng Washin Tama Dama Rune Jakto To Yompo Topa Dangne Dong Se Son De Ching Chapa Juna Chingwa Je Drampo Shelni Chewa Nampas He Chanson Drabo Ultra Gendu Ba Proa Shindi Rayi Lake Pashu Chiwo Musi Gepe Gap Tab 10 Draksha Miko Nasu Su Chen Yunchen Tuya Nala Ulai Gen Shinla Chona Toma Lenche Pe Powden Chadu Pala Chad Selo Sengi Tempan Yempo Sun Wadang Control Goban Yumpo Topa Dang Dacho Ponlam Kodam Chainam Ki Kene Bate Chamchi Shiwadang Chidu Nudu Sel Do So Om Yushe Chen Mesik La Cha Sela Zabdu Danche Binan Yakanyen Nampo Chenpo Tagi Shata Ten Tragyo Guye Genpa Nipa Gen Yapo Dugu Bawa Cheng Wajin Tama Damo Runi Dakto To Yompo Topa Dangne Dung Se Son Deshin Chapa Shune Chiwa Je Drumpo Shelni Chewa Nampa Si Chansun Drabo Uji Gendu Ba Proa Shindi Rayi Lake Pashu Chiwo Miki Gepe Gap Tab 10 Drasha Miko Nansu Su Chechen Linchin Tuna Nala Ola Gen Shina Jona Toma Lenche Pe Padan Chadu Pala Chai Sela Sangye Tempan Yampo Songwada Poncho Gopan Yumpo Topada Dacho Ponam Kodan Chenam Ki Kene Bache Tamche Jiwada Chidu Nudup Nudu Sel Du So Mama Gompo Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Nomo Malu Sowa Sho Gompo Lama Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Bache Malu Sowa Sho Lama Gompo Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Nomo Malu Sowa Sho Gompo Lama Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Bache Malu Sowa Sho Lama Gompo Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Nomo Malu Sowa Sho Gompo Lama Yemela Dani Gyope Kapsuchi Dacho Senchen Tamchi Ki Bache Malu Sowa Sho Gewadi Sherab Kuntu Da Gyawa Damche Malu Jinpadang Te Gyao Ken Chin Chin Tu Pen Tu Lama Gompo Yeme and then dedicating this recitation, remembering it's multiplying all our merits still for a few more days, 100 million times every breath, every moment, every virtuous syllable. Janchup Senchok Rinpoche Maki Panam Ge Kuchik Ge Panyam Pame Pai Gong Ne Gong Du Shuk, and sealing all the merits with emptiness, which we're enjoying the whole time anyway, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me and all the merits of the three times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, which exist in mere name. May I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, mere imputation, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, dependent on causes and conditions, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side, which is merely labeled by the mind, to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, which is totally empty by myself alone, who is completely empty of existing from my own side, who is a total hallucination my mind has made up. Long life prayers for our precious lamas, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Jig ten kam de pende ma lupa gang le shung wei sam pe li ji no ka jin sung me Tenzin ya tsolam suwa depsu tuje lun shu. And for Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Tu su shan shin jam gun gyao wei Tenzin gam bao wei kong tok do po ze Chuk sum ko wei le mon tu drop pa da su du je gu nu jap ti shu. Thank you very much. So now I'm passing the baton on to the incomparable Venerable Kartson. Incomparable Venerable Kartson La for the next hour. Thank you very much.
So that's the sutra, right?
Yeah. That's it.
Right. How are you, Chokyi?
I'm good.
I'm just going to switch on the fan in just a second. All right. So good afternoon. Just came back from a long lunch, and it's excruciatingly hot here in Queensland, hot and humid. So I feel a bit of brain dead. So I guess it's good to do sutra recitation when you're brain dead. Maybe things can only improve. Probably cannot get worse. So to begin with, maybe let's take 2 or 3 minutes just to make sure that at least my body and mind are in a good space. So normally I start a session with first of all making sure that I become aware of my body. And I quickly scan my body from the toes up to the crown, and pay attention to any tension or discomfort in the body. And if there is any discomfort, tension, tingling sensations or what have you, I either try to shuffle around or breathe it out. Then after I do that, I count a round of 21 breaths, just as a way of anchoring my mind and developing some stability. And then once we do that, 21 breaths, we're going to briefly correct the motivation with breathage and bodhicitta. Thank you very much. You're awesome. And then we're going to do a Vajra Cutter recitation. So, first of all, become aware of your body and make sure that your posture is right for you. The most important thing is that the back is upright, allowing a movement of winds and minds along the central channel in the spine, so that it helps to create a mind that is stable and clear and spacious. Make sure that you're not slouching back or backwards or forward to the right or left. Then turn your attention to the breathing process and count a round of 21 breaths. Breathing out and stopping, breathing in and stopping. When I say stopping, I still mean that we're going to allow the breathing process to occur completely naturally without forcing it and manipulating it. Just to observe the moment of the breath as a way of anchoring the mind inwardly. And having done so, we can reaffirm our motivation. First of all, beginning with the recognition of the equality between ourselves and others, from early morning to late night, and whatever we do, directly or indirectly, we do that on the basis of the wish, the impulse, most of the time unstated, to be happy, to be well, to be comfortable, to feel a sense of satisfaction and security, to avoid suffering and pain, discomfort, danger, anxiety. So whatever you do, directly or indirectly, is oriented towards that. And of the body and mind, the most important thing is our mental state. With a mind that is happy and well, it's easy to bear with physical discomfort. And with a mind that is unwell, even if you have all the comforts in the world, you'll still be miserable to a certain degree. So the mind is paramount. So then in order then to develop our mind to an utmost extent, to develop positive qualities, infinite knowledge, infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite ability to be of benefit to others, and to eliminate all the numerous type of faults that we have in the mind, to begin with the ignorance and anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, all other afflictions that stem from these afflictions. We first of all rely upon external conditions, spiritual teachers, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kapja Lama Soka Rinpoche, the different geshes in the FMT centers, other teachers in other organizations or otherwise that we rely upon, passing on the teachings of the Buddha for us to become more educated. But first of all, what the mind is. How do we experience suffering on a mental level? And the antidotes that can be developed in order to develop our mind, to remedy afflictive states of mind. We have the internal conditions, freedoms, and richnesses that make it possible for us as human beings to study, reflect, and meditate upon the Buddhist teachings. We're not born in miserable states of existence. No, we were born with certain disability or with strong, harsh views, strong views, wrong views. We're not born in a place and time in which the Buddha and the Buddhist teachings are not available, nor we're born in a place where we don't have access to the communities of practitioners, monks and lay people alike. And we also have all the richnesses with respect to ourselves and others that make it possible for us to enjoy the full extent of the Buddha Dharma. And the time is short, making it extremely important to use our precious human rebirth, which is so hard to find in this lifetime, starting from now. Keeping in mind that death is definitely certain. Time of death is uncertain. And at the time of death, nothing will happen apart from the Dharma. And should we end up in a miserable state of existence after death, it would be absolutely dismal. So what can afford protections are the three objects of refuge: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The teacher, the Buddha, the actual protection through paths and through sufferings in the mind stream, and the Sangha, the community of teachers, practitioners that can guide us, show us the way to develop our mind. Not only for our sake, but for the sake of all Mother sentient beings that extend to the reaches of space. So with that, we're going to say 3 times the verse for refuge and bodhicitta before we start the Vajra Cutter Sutra recitation. We go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. But accumulations are gathered through generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. To the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly, I can go for refuge until I'm enlightened. But the accumulations are gathered through generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. But accumulations are gathered through generosity and so forth, and also by doing this sutra recitation. I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of holding some as close and others as distant, with a sense of attachment or with a sense of anger. May all sentient beings be free from that. I prostrate to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling at Shravasti, in the grove of the Prince Jeta, in the garden of Anathapindada, together with a great sangha of bhikshus of 1,250 bhikshus and a great many Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. Then in the morning, having put on the lower and upper Dhamma robes and carried the begging bowl, the Bhagavan entered the great city of Shravasti to request alms. Then having gone to the great city of Shravasti to request alms, the Bhagavan afterwards enjoyed the alms food, and having performed the activity of food, since he had given up alms of later food, put away the begging bowl and upper robe. He washed his feet, sat upon a prepared cushion, and having assumed a cross-legged posture, straightened the body upright and placed mindfulness in front. Then many bhikshus approached to the place where the Bhagavan was, and having reached there, bowing their heads to the Bhagavan's feet, circumambulated 3 times and sat to one side. Also, at that time, the Venerable Subhuti, joining that very assembly, sat down. Then the Venerable Subhuti rose from that seat, placed the upper robe over one shoulder, set his right knee on the ground, bowed, joining the palms towards the Bhagavan, and said this to the Bhagavan: Bhagavan, the extent to which the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly enlightened Buddha, has benefited the Bodhisattva Mahasattva with highest benefit, the extent to which the Tathagata was entrusted to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva with highest entrustment, Bhagavan, it is astonishing. Sugata, it is astonishing. Bhagavan, how should one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle abide? How practice, how control the mind? That was said, and the Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti. Subhuti, well said, well said. Subhuti, sorry, should have said Subhuti. It is so, it is so. The Tathagata has benefited the Bodhisattva Mahasattva with the highest benefit. The Tathagata has entrusted the Bodhisattva Mahasattvas with the highest entrustment. Subhuti, therefore, listen and properly retain it in mind, and I will explain to you how one has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should abide, how practice, how control the mind. Having replied Bhagavan, so be it, the Venerable Subhuti listened in accordance with the Bhagavan, and the Bhagavan said this: Subhuti, here one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should generate the mind of enlightenment, thinking this: as many as there are included in the category of sentient beings, born from eggs, born from womb, born from heat and from moisture, born miraculously, with form, without form, with discrimination, without discrimination, but not without subtle discrimination, this realm of sentient beings, as many as are designated by imputation as sentient beings, all those I shall cause to pass completely beyond sorrow into the realm of nirvana without remainder of the aggregates. Although limitless sentient beings have thus been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow, so sentient beings whatsoever has been caused to pass completely beyond sorrow. Why is that, Subhuti? Because if a bodhisattva engages in discriminating a sentient being, he is not to be called bodhisattva. Why is that? Subhuti, if anyone engages in discriminating a sentient being, or engages in discriminating a living being, or engages in discriminating a person, they are not to be called a bodhisattva. Further, Subhuti, the bodhisattva gives a gift without abiding in thing, gives a gift without abiding in any phenomenon whatsoever. The gift should be given not abiding in visual form, nor should the gift be not given abiding in sound, smell, taste, tactility, or phenomenon. Subhuti, without abiding in discriminating anything whatsoever as signs. Thus a bodhisattva gives gives a gift. Why is that? Subhuti, because the heap of merit of the Bodhisattva who gives a gift without abiding, Subhuti, is not easy to take the measure of. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Do you think it is easy to take the measure of space in the East? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, similarly, do you think it is easy to take the measure of space in the South, West, North, above, below, the intermediate directions and the 10 directions? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, similarly, the heap of merit the Bodhisattva gives a gift without abiding is also not easy to take on the measure of. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Is one viewed as the Tathagata due to the perfect marks? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to the perfect marks. Why is that? Because that itself which the Tathagata called perfect marks are not perfect marks. He replied thus, and the Bhagavan said this to the Venerable Subhuti. Subhuti, to the degree that there are perfect marks, to that degree there is deception. To the degree that there are no perfect marks, to that degree there is no deception. Thus, you did the Tathagata as marks and no marks. He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan. Bhagavan, in the future period, at the end of 500, which is the Holy Dharma will totally, when the Holy Dharma will totally perish, will any sentient beings produce correct discrimination upon the words of the sutras, such as this being explained? The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, do not say that what you have said. In the future period, at the end of the 500, when the Holy Dharma will totally perish, will any sentient beings produce correct discrimination upon the words of the sutras, such as this being explained? Moreover, Subhuti, in the future period, at the end of the 500, when the Holy Dharma will totally perish, there will be a Bodhisattva Mahasattva, endowed with morality, endowed with qualities, endowed with wisdom. Subhuti, those Bodhisattvas Mahasattvas, moreover, will not have made homage to just a single Buddha. They will not have produced roots of virtue to just a single Buddha. Subhuti, there will be Bodhisattva Mahasattvas who have made homage to many hundred thousands of Buddhas and produced roots of virtue as many hundreds of thousands of Buddhas. Subhuti, those who will acquire merely a single mind of faith upon the words of such sutras as this being explained, Subhuti, the Tathagata knows. Subhuti, does seen by the Tathagata. Subhuti, all those sentient beings will produce and perfectly collect an unfathomable heap of merit. Why is that? Subhuti, because those Bodhisattva Mahasattvas will not engage in discriminating a self and will not discriminate a sentient being, will not discriminate a living being, will not engage in discriminating a person. Subhuti, those Bodhisattva Mahasattvas will not engage in discriminating phenomena, not discriminating non-phenomena. Nor will they engage in discrimination or non-discrimination. Why is that? Subhuti, because if those Bodhisattva Mahasattvas engage in discriminating phenomena, that itself would be of them in grasping a self, in grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Because even if they engage in discriminating phenomena as non-existent, that would be of them grasping a self and grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Why is that? Further, Subhuti, because a Bodhisattva should not wrongly grasp phenomena nor grasp non-phenomenal. Therefore, thinking of that, the Tathagata said, if by those who know this Dharma treatise as like a boat, even Dharmas should be given up, what need is there to mention non-Dharma? Further, the Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment, exists whatsoever? Has any Dharma been taught by the Tathagata? Having said that, the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, as I understand this meaning, that was taught by the Bhagavan, that Dharma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. The Dharma that was taught by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. Why is that? Because any Dharma manifestly and completely realized or taught by the Tathagata is not to be grasped or to be expressed. Is not Dharma nor is non-Dharma. Why is that? Because Arya beings are differentiated by the uncompounded. The Bhagavan said to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If some son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage, completely fulfilling his billionfold world system with the 7 types of precious things, where to give gifts, do you think that son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an immense heap of merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan immense, Sugata immense, the son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an immense heap of merit on that basis. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that very heap of merit is not a heap. Therefore, the Tathagata said, heap of merit, heap of merit. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who completely filling this billionfold world system with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts, if someone having taken even a little as 1 stanza of 4 lines from this discourse of Dhamma, also were to explain and correctly and thoroughly teach it to others, on that basis, the heap of merit produced would be much greater, incalculable, unfathomable. Why is that? Subhuti, because the unsurpassable, perfect, completed enlightenment of the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddhas arise from it. The Buddha Bhagavan is also produced from it. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Buddha Dhammas called the Buddha Dhammas. Those Buddha Dhammas taught by the Tathagata as non-existent. Therefore, they are called Buddha Dhammas. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the stream enters think having attained the result of stream enter? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that, Bhagavan? Because one does not enter into anything whatsoever. Therefore, one is called stream enter. One has not entered into form, not enter into sound, nor enter into smell, nor into taste, nor into tactility, nor enter into phenomenon. Therefore, one is called a stream enter. Bhagavan, if that stream enter were to think, I have attained the result of stream enter, that itself would be grasping of such a self, grasping at a sentient being, grasping at a living being, grasping at a person. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the once returner think, I have attained the result of once returner? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon of entry into the state of once returner does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, one says, once returner. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the non-returner think, I have attained the result of non-returner? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon of entry into the state of non-returning does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, one says non-returning. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Arhat think I have attained the result of Arhatship? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Because the phenomenon called Arhat does not exist whatsoever. Bhagavan, if that Arhat were to think I have attained the result of Arhatship, that itself would be grasping at that self, grasping at a sentient being, grasping as a living being, grasping as a person. Bhagavana was declared by the Tathagata Arya Arhat, perfect completed Buddha, as the foremost of those who abide without afflictions. Bhagavan, I am an Arhat, free of attachment. But Bhagavan, I do not think I am an Arhat. Bhagavan, if I were to think I have attained Arhatship, the Tathagata would not have made a prediction about me, saying, the son of the lineage, Subhuti, is the foremost of those who abide without afflictions, since not abiding in anything whatsoever, he abides without afflictions, he abides without afflictions. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Dhamma that was received by the Tathagata from the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, Dipamkara, exists whatsoever? Subhuti said, Bhagavan, it is not so. The Dhamma that was received by the Tathagata from the Tathagata Arhat, perfect completed Buddha, Dipamkara, does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, if some bodhisattva were to say, I shall actualize arranged fields, they would speak untruly. Why is that? Subhuti, because arranged fields called arranged fields, those arrangements are taught by the Tathagata as non-existent. Therefore, they are called arranged fields. Subhuti, therefore, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva thus should generate the mind without abiding, should generate the mind not abiding in anything. They should generate the mind not abiding in form, should generate the mind not abiding in sound, smell, taste, activity, or phenomenon. Subhuti, it is like that. If, for example, the body of being were to become dust, they were to become like this, as big as Sumuru, the king of mountains. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Would that body be big? Subhuti said, Bhagavan, the body would be big. Sugata, that body would be big. Why is that? Because it is taught by the Tathagata as not being a thing. Therefore, it is called a body. Since it is not by the Tathagata as not being a thing, therefore it is called a big body. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If there were also just as many Ganges rivers, as there were grains of sand in the river Ganges, would their grains of sand be many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, if those very Ganges rivers were many, there is no need to mention their grains of sand. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, you should appreciate, you should understand, if some men or women completely filling with the 7 kinds of precious things, that the many world system, as there are the grains of sand of those rivers Ganges, were to offer that the Tathagata Aha perfectly completed Buddhas, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Would that man or woman produce much merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, much. Sugata, much. The man or woman would produce much merit on that basis. Bhagavan said, Subhuti, compared to someone who completely fulfilling that many world systems with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts to the Tathagata Aha perfectly completed Buddha, if someone having taken even a little stanzas, 4 lines from this discourse of Dhamma, were to explain it and correctly and thoroughly teach it also to others, on that basis, the merit itself would produce, that itself would be much greater, incalculable, unfathomable. Furthermore, Subhuti, if whatever place on earth, even a stanza of 4 lines from this discourse on Dhamma is recited or taught, that place on earth is a real shrine of the world with devas, humans, and asuras. What need to mention that whoever takes up this discourse of Dhamma, memorizes, reads, understands, and probably takes to mind, will be most astonishing. In that place on earth, the teacher resides. Other levels of gurus also abide. He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, what is the name of this discourse of Dhamma? How should it be remembered? Before we answer that, I'm going to just take a sip of water. My eyesight is becoming a bit blurry. He said that, and the Bhagavan replied to the Venerable Subhuti. Subhuti, the name of this Dhamma discourse is the wisdom gone beyond. It should be remembered like that. Why is that, Subhuti? Because the very same wisdom gone beyond that is taught by the Tathagata is not gone beyond. Therefore, it is called wisdom gone beyond. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Dhamma that is taught by the Tathagata exist whatsoever? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, the Dhamma that is taught by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Are the quantities of practice of earth that exists in the billion-fold world system many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, the particles of the earth are many. Sugata, there are many. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which is a particle of earth was taught by the Tathagata as not being a particle, therefore it is called particle of earth. That which is a world system was taught by the Tathagata as not being a world system, therefore it is called a world system. The Tathagata replied, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one is to be viewed as the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, due to those 32 marks of a great being. Subhuti said, Bhagavan, it is not so. Why is that? Bhagavan, because those 32 marks of a great being that are taught by the Tathagata are taught by the Tathagata as 2 marks, as no marks, sorry. Therefore, they are called 32 marks of the Tathagatas. The Bhagavan said, further, Subhuti, compared with some man or woman completely giving up the body of numbering grains of sand of the river Ganges, if someone taking even a little stanza of 4 lines from the discourse of Dhamma were to teach it to others, they would produce on that basis many great merits, incalculable, unfathomable. Thereupon the Venerable Subhuti, due to the impact of the Dhamma, shed tears. Having wept away the tears, he replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, this discourse on Dhamma taught thus by the Tathagata, Bhagavan, is astonishing. Sugata, it is astonishing. Bhagavan, since my production of exalted wisdom, I've never before heard this discourse on Dhamma. Bhagavan, those sentient beings who will produce correct discrimination upon this sutra being explained will be most astonishing. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which is correct discrimination is not discrimination. Therefore, correct discrimination will stop at the Tathagata saying correct discrimination. Bhagavan, upon this Dhamma discourse being explained, that I imagine and appreciate is not astonishing to me. Bhagavan, in the final time, in the final age, at the end of the 500, those sentient beings who take up this Dhamma discourse, memorize, read, and understand it will be most astonishing. Furthermore, Bhagavan, they will not engage in discriminating itself, will not engage in discriminating in sentient beings, discriminating in living beings, discriminating in person. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that itself, which is discrimination as a self, discrimination as a person being, discrimination as a living being, and discrimination as a person is not discrimination. Why is that? Because the Buddha Bhagavans are free of all discrimination. He said that in Bhagavan replied to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, it is so, it is so. Upon the sutra being explained, upon the sutra being explained, those sentient beings who are unafraid, are terrified, and will not become terrified, would be most astonishing. Why is that, Subhuti? Because this has wisdom gone beyond, taught by the Tathagata, the highest wisdom gone beyond, that is taught by the Tathagata, was taught by the unfathomable Buddha Bhagavans. Therefore, it is called highest wisdom gone beyond. Further, Subhuti, that itself, which is the patience gone beyond of the Tathagata, has not gone beyond. Why is that? Subhuti, because when the king of Kalinga cut off my limbs and appendages, sorry for that. At that time, they did not arise in me discrimination as a self, discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, nor discrimination as a person. And in me there was no discrimination whatsoever. Yet there was also no non-discrimination. Why is that? Subhuti, because if at that time there had arisen in me discrimination as a self, at that time there would also have arisen discrimination of malice. If there has arisen discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, discrimination as a person, at that time there would also have arisen discrimination of malice. Subhuti, I know with clairvoyance that in the past period, during the 500 lifetimes, there was the rishi called the preacher of patience. Even then, there did not arise in me the discrimination as a self. There did not arise discrimination as a sentient being, discrimination as a living being, discrimination as a person. Subhuti, therefore, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, completely abandoning all discrimination, should generate the mind for unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. One should generate the mind not abiding in form. One should generate the mind not abiding in sound. Since the cockatoos are totally agreeing with me or with the sutra on that. So one should generate the mind not abiding in form. One should generate the mind not abiding in sound, smell, taste, tactility, or phenomenon. One should generate the mind not abiding in non-phenomenon either. One should generate the mind not abiding in anything whatsoever. Why is that? Because that itself which is abiding does not abide. Therefore, the Tathagata taught the Bodhisattva should give gifts not abiding. Further, Subhuti, the Bodhisattva should thus totally give away gifts for the welfare of all sentient beings. However, that itself which is discrimination as a sentient being is non-discrimination. Those themselves who were taught by the Tathagata saying all sentient beings also do not exist. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Tathagata teaches reality, teaches truth, teaches what is. The Tathagata teaches what is without error. Further, Subhuti, the Dhamma that is manifestly and completely realized by or shown by the Tathagata has neither truth nor falsity. Subhuti, it is like this, for example. If a man with eyes has entered darkness, he does not see anything whatsoever. Likewise, should one view the Bodhisattva who totally gives up a gift by falling into anything. Subhuti, it is like this. For example, upon dawn and the sun rising, a man with eyes sees various kinds of forms. Likewise, should one view the Bodhisattva who totally gives up a gift by not falling into anything. Further, Subhuti, the sons of the lineage, or daughter of the lineage, who take up this Dhamma discourse, memorize, read, understand, and correctly and thoroughly teach it to others in detail, are known by the Tathagata. They are seen by the Tathagata. All those sentient beings will produce unfathomable heap of merit. Further, Subhuti, compared to some men or women at the time of dawn, totally giving up bodies numbering the grains of sand of the river Ganges, also totally giving up bodies numbering the grains of sand of the river Ganges in the time of the midday and evening, in such number totally giving up bodies for many hundred thousands of 10 millions, hundreds, billions, eons, if someone, having heard this Dhamma discourse, would not reject it, if they themselves would produce much greater merit on that basis, incalculable, unfathomable. What need to mention someone who, having reading it in letters, takes it up, memorizes, reads, understanding correctly, and thoroughly teaches to others in details. Further, Subhuti, this Dhamma discourse is unimaginable and incomparable. This Dhamma discourse was taught by the Tathagata for the benefit of sentient beings who have correctly entered into the supreme vehicle, the welfare of sentient beings who have correctly entered into the best vehicle. Those who take up this Dhamma discourse, memorize, read, understand it correctly, and thoroughly teach it to others in details are known by the Tathagata. They are seen by the Tathagata. All those sentient beings will be endowed with an unfathomable heap of merit. Being endowed with an unimaginable heap of merit, incomparable, immeasurable, and limitless, all those sentient beings will hold my enlightenment on the shoulder. Why is that, Subhuti? This Dhamma discourse is unable to be held by those who appreciate the inferior, by those viewing a self, by those viewing a sentient being, by those viewing a living being, by those viewing a person, are unable to hear or take up, to memorize, to read, and to understand, because that cannot be. Further, Subhuti, as at whatever place on earth this sutra is taught, that place on earth will become worthy to be paid homage by the world with devas, humans, and asuras. That place on earth will become worthy as an object of prostration, worthy as an object of circumambulation. The place on earth will become like a shrine. Subhuti, whatever son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage takes up these words of sutra like this, memorizes, reads, and understands, they will be tormented, will be intensely tormented. Why is that, Subhuti? Because whatever non-virtual actions of former lives that were committed by those sentient beings that would bring rebirth in the lower realms due to torment in this life, those non-virtuous actions of former lifetimes will be purified, and they will also attain the enlightenment of a Buddha. Subhuti, I know with clairvoyance that in the past period, in even more countless eons, much beyond beyond, the Tathagata had perfectly completed Buddha Dipankara. There were 8400,000 of 10 millions, 100 billion Buddhas whom I pleased, and having pleased did not upset. Subhuti, from whatever I did, having pleased and not having upset those Buddha Bhagavans in future period, apologize for that, it's just hot. In future periods, at the end of the 500, from someone taking up this sutra, memorizing, reading, and understanding, Subhuti, compared to this heap of merit, the former heap of merit does not approach even a 100th part, a 1,000th part, a 100,000th part, does not withstand enumeration, measure, calculation, similarly equivalence, or comparison. Subhuti, at that time, the sons of the lineage, the daughter of the lineage, will receive a quantity of heap of merit that, if I were to express the heap of merit of those sons of the lineage or daughter of the lineage, sentient beings would go mad, would be disturbed. Further, Subhuti, this Dhamma discourse being unimaginable, its maturation indeed should also be known as unimaginable. Then the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, how should one who has correctly entered this Bodhisattva's vehicle abide? How practice? How control the mind? The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, here one who has correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should generate the mind thinking this. I shall cause all sentient beings to pass completely beyond sorrow into the realm of Nirvana without remainder of the aggregates. Although sentient beings were caused to pass completely beyond sorrow like that, no sentient beings whatsoever were caused to pass beyond sorrow. Why is that, Subhuti? Because If a bodhisattva engages in discriminating sentient being, he is not to be called a bodhisattva. Also, if he engages in discriminating a person, he is not to be called a bodhisattva. Why is such a Buddha? Because the Dhamma called one who has correctly entered this bodhisattva's vehicle does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata from the Tathagata's Dipankara, unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment, exists whatsoever? He said that, and the Venerable Subhuti replied to the Bhagavan, what? Hey Dylan, welcome. So Bhagavan, what Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata from the Tathagata Dipankara, unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever? He said that in the Bhagavan replied to the Venerable Subhuti, Subhuti, it is so, it is so. The Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata from the Tathagata Dipankara, unsurpassed perfect complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if that Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata were to exist at all, the Buddha, the Tathagata Dipankara, would not have made the prediction to me saying, young Brahmin, in the future period, you will become the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha called Shakyamuni. Subhuti thus, since the Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, the Tathagata Dipankara made a prediction to me saying, young Brahmin, in the future periods you will become the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha called Shakyamuni. Why is that? Because Subhuti, the Tathagata, is an epithet of the suchness of reality. Subhuti, if someone were to say that Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddha, manifestly and completely realized unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, they would speak wrongly. Why is that, Subhuti? Because that Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, that Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata has neither truth nor falsity. Therefore, all Dhammas are Buddha Dhammas, was taught by the Tathagata. Subhuti, all Dhammas, all those are non-Dhammas. Therefore, it is said that all Dhammas are Buddha's Dhammas. Subhuti, if it is like this, for example, like a human endowed with a body, and the body becomes large. The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, that was taught by the Tathagata. A human being endowed with a body and a large body is taught by the Tathagata as not being a body. Therefore, endowed with a body and a large body is said. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so. If some bodhisattva were to say, I shall cause sentient beings to completely pass beyond sorrow, he should not be called bodhisattva. Why is that, Subhuti? Does the Dhamma that is called bodhisattva exist whatsoever? Subhuti said, Bhagavan, it does not. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, therefore, it was taught by the Tathagata that all Dhammas are without a sentient being, without a living being, without a person. Subhuti, if some bodhisattva were to say, I shall actualize engaged arranged fields, he too should be expressed similarly. Why is that, Subhuti? Because the arranged fields are called arranged fields, are those taught by the Tathagata as non-arranged. Therefore, they are called arranged fields. Subhuti, whatever bodhisattva appreciates that Dhammas are selfless, saying Dhammas are selfless, is expressed by the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly completed Buddhas as a bodhisattva called a bodhisattva. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the flesh eye? Subhuti said, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the flesh eye. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the divine eye? Subhuti said, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the divine eye. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possesses the wisdom eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the wisdom eye. The Tathagata said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? That the Tathagata possesses the Dhamma eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The Tathagata possesses the Dhamma eye. The Tathagata said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Tathagata possess the Buddha eye? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so that the Tathagata possesses the Buddha eye. Just a quick rest to my eyes. The Brahman said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If the beings also just as many Ganges rivers as there are grains of sand in river Ganges, there were just as many world systems as there are grains of sand of those. Would those world systems be many? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. Those world systems would be many. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, as many sentient beings as exist as those world systems, I totally know their continuum of consciousness of different thoughts. Why is that? Subhuti, because a so-called continuum of consciousness that is taught by the Tathagatas is non-continuum. Therefore, it is called the continuum of consciousness. Why is that, Subhuti? Because past consciousness does not exist as observable, nor does future consciousness exist as observable, not does present consciousness exist as an observable. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If someone completely filling the billion-fold world systems with the 7 types of precious things were to give gifts, do you think that the son of the lineage or daughter of lineage would produce an enormous heap of merit on that basis? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, enormous, Sugata, enormous. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so. The son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an enormous heap of merit on that basis. Subhuti, if a heap of merit were a heap of merit, the Tathagata would not have taught a heap of merit called a heap of merit. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Should one be viewed as Tathagata due to the total achievement of the form body? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. They should not be viewed as Tathagata due to total achievement of the form body. Why is that so? Bhagavan, because total achievement of the form body that is taught by the Tathagatas is not being total achievement, therefore it is called the total achievement of the form body. Just take a break for a minute. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so. The son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage would produce an enormous heap of merit on that basis. Subhuti, if a heap of merit were a heap of merit, the Tathagata would not have taught a heap of merit called a heap of merit. I think I read through that. All right, I'll jump one paragraph, sorry for that. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one should be viewed as a Tathagata due to perfect marks, Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. It is not so. One is not to be viewed as a Tathagata due to perfect marks. Why is that? Because that which was taught by the Tathagata as perfect marks was taught by the Tathagata as not being perfect marks. Therefore, they are called perfect marks. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, what do you think about this? If it is taught that the Tathagata considers the Dhamma is demonstrated by me, Subhuti, do you view it like that? Because the Dhamma that is demonstrated by the Tathagata does not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if someone were to say the Dhamma is demonstrated by the Tathagata, Subhuti, he would deprecate me since non-existent, deprecate me since non-existence and wrongly seized. Why is that, Subhuti? Because that demonstrated Buddha called demonstrated the demonstrated Dhamma called demonstrated Dhamma, which is referred to saying demonstrated Dhamma does not exist whatsoever. Then the Venerable Subhuti said to the Bhagavan, Bhagavan, in the future period, will there be any sentient being who, having heard this demonstration of such Dhamma as this, will clearly believe? The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, there are not sentient beings nor non-sentient beings. Why is that? Subhuti, so-called sentient beings, because they are taught by the Tathagata as non-sentient beings, they are therefore called sentient beings. Subhuti, what do you think about this? Does the Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, exist whatsoever? The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, that Dhamma that was manifestly and completely realized by the Tathagata, unsurpassed, perfect and complete enlightenment, does not exist whatsoever. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so, for it. Even the least Dhamma does not exist and it is not observed. Therefore, it is called unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Further, Subhuti, the Dhamma is equivalent, since for it, in equivalence, does not exist whatsoever. Therefore, it is called unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. That unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment, equivalent as selfless, without sentient beings, without living being, without person, is manifestly and completely realized through all virtuous dhammas. Subhuti, virtuous dhammas called virtuous dhammas. They taught by the Tathagata as non-dhammas and therefore called virtuous dhammas. Further, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage collecting a heap of the 7 types of precious things, about equaling whatever Sumera, king of mountain, exists in the billion world systems and giving gifts, if someone having taken up even as little as a stanza of 4 lines from this wisdom gone beyond, were to teach it to others, Subhuti, compared to this heap of merit, the former heap of merit, having not approached even 100th path, does not withstand comparison. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If it is thought that the Tathagata considers sentient beings are liberated by me, Subhuti, do you not view it like that? Why is that? Subhuti, because those sentient beings who are liberated by the Tathagata do not exist whatsoever. Subhuti, if some sentient beings were to be liberated by the Tathagata, that itself would be the Tathagata grasping itself, grasping a sentient being, grasping a living being, grasping a person. Subhuti, so-called grasping itself, that is taught by the Tathagata as non-grasping, yet that grasped by childish ordinary beings. Subhuti, so-called childish ordinary beings, who were taught by the Tathagata as just non-beings. Therefore, they are called childish ordinary beings. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one to be viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is not so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, it is so, it is so. One is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Subhuti, if one were viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks, even a Chakravartin king would be the Tathagata. Therefore, one is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Then the Venerable Subhuti said this to the Bhagavan. Bhagavan, as I understand the meaning of what the Bhagavan has said, one is not viewed as the Tathagata due to perfect marks. Then these verses were spoken by the Bhagavan at that time. Whoever sees me as form, whoever knows me as sound, have wrongly engaged by abandoning. Those beings do not see me. The Buddhas are Dhammata. Viewed, the guides are Dhammakaya. Since Dhammata is not to be known, it is unable to be known. Subhuti, what do you think about this? If one grasps that the Tathagata Arhat perfectly completed Buddha is due to perfect marks, Subhuti, you should not view so, for Subhuti, the Tathagata Arhat perfectly completed Buddhas do not manifestly and completely realize unsurpassable, perfect and complete enlightenment due to perfect marks. Subhuti, if one grasps that some Dhamma has been designated as destroyed or annihilated by those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle, Subhuti, it would not be viewed so. Those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle have not designated any Dhamma whatsoever as destroyed or annihilated. Further, Subhuti, compared to any son of the lineage, daughter of the lineage, who completely filling with 7 kinds of precious things, as many world systems as the grains in the sand of Ganges river, were to give gifts. If any bodhisattva attained forbearance, that Dhamma selfless and unproduced, on that basis, the heap of merit they themselves would produce would be much greater. Further, Subhuti, a heap of merit should not be acquired by the bodhisattva. The Venerable Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, should not the heap of merit be acquired by the bodhisattva? The Bhagavan replied, Subhuti, acquire, not wrongly grasped. Therefore, it is called acquired. Subhuti, if someone says that Tathagata does not go, the Tathagata goes or comes or stands or sits or lies down, he does not understand the meaning explained by me. Why is that? Subhuti, because the Tathagata, the one gone thus, does not go anywhere, nor has come from anywhere. Therefore, one says that Tathagata had perfectly completed Buddha. Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it is so. The collection of subtlest atoms would be many. Why is that, Bhagavan? Because if there were a collection, the Bhagavan would not have said collection of subtle atoms. Why is that? Because that collection of subtle atoms, that was taught by the Bhagavan, was taught by the Tathagata as no collection. Therefore, one says collection of subtle atoms. The billion-fold world system that was taught by the Tathagata was taught by the Tathagata as no system. Therefore, one says billion world system. Why is that, Bhagavan? Because if there were to be a world system, that itself would be grasping a solid thing. The taught by the Tathagata is grasping a solid thing was taught by the Tathagata is no grasping. Therefore, one says grasping a solid thing. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, grasping solid things in itself convention. The Dhamma does not exist as expressed, yet it is grasped by ordinary childish beings. Subhuti, if someone were to say, viewing as a self was taught by the Tathagata, and viewing as a sentient being, viewing as a living being, viewing as a person was taught by the Tathagata, Subhuti, would that be spoken by the right speech? Subhuti replied, Bhagavan, it would not. Sugata, it would not. Why is that? Bhagavan, because that which was taught by the Tathagata as viewing itself was taught by the Tathagata also as no viewing. Therefore, one says viewing itself. The Bhagavan said, Subhuti, those who have correctly entered the Bodhisattva's vehicle should know, should view, should appreciate all dhammas like this. They should appreciate like this, not abiding whatsoever in any discriminating in Buddha, any discrimination of as a Buddha. Why is that, Subhuti? Because discrimination as a Buddha, called discrimination as a Dhamma, is taught by the Tathagata as a non-discrimination. Therefore, one says discrimination as Dhamma. Further, Subhuti, compared to any Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, who completely filling unfathomable and incalculable world systems with the 7 kinds of precious things, were to give gifts, if any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who having taken as little as stanza of 4 lines from this perfection of wisdom, were to memorize, read, or understand, or correctly and thoroughly teach it to others. On that basis, the merit he himself would produce be more incalculable and unfathomable. How should one correctly and thoroughly teach? Just how one would not correctly and thoroughly teach. Therefore, one says correctly and thoroughly teach as a star, a visual aberration, a lamp, an illusion, a dew, a bubble, a dream, lightning, and cloud, view all compound phenomena like that. The Bhagavan that having been said by the Bhagavan, the elder Subhuti, those bodhisattvas, the 4-fold disciples, bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas, upasikas, And the world with devas, humans, asuras, and gandharvas overjoyed highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. So I've completed reading this sutra. I apologize for breaking up a little bit here and there. Since that in this weather, my eyesight is becoming a bit blurry, so apologies for that. Apologies, first of all, to the Buddha, Bodhisattvas, and you guys at home. And with the merit that we have accumulated together in this recitation or the previous recitations during the 15 days of miracle, I would like to dedicate it, first of all, for the flourishing of the Buddha's teachings, not only in the Tibetan environment, but now as it is making its way through the West, where we have fully qualified teachers that will be able to pass on the scriptural system, and those who practice meditation in isolation by themselves, in seclusion, to reach swift, the state of enlightenment swiftly. And in the Golden Prayer Book, I'll say a few verses of dedication. In page 320. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. May the precious spring bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, yourselves in the battlefield where fall, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majanath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones. Sever of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. And since my ordination master, Taisito Rinpoche, turned 68 a couple of days ago, I would also like to dedicate all the virtue that we have all accumulated together in this recitation, and all the previous recitations, and all other recitations that people are doing worldwide for the long life and good health of Taisito Rinpoche, and the flourishing of the teachings, teachers and teachings. So thank you very much. And please be merry. Sorry? Where is Chokyi? Yeah. She did 1 hour and I did the second.
Oh, she did 1 hour, you did the second.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure that if I should be closing this session. I haven't brought my phone in. I think I'll just check. Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, but I'm gonna leave. I would need now if I could pray that.
Chokyi did it when I came in.
Huh?
Chokyi did it when I came in.
I was thinking we should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering when I'm logging on, I saw you doing that. I don't.
Yeah. Right. I suppose I should close this session in computer. So I'm just waiting for Margot to reply. Yeah. Right. Just switch.
It seems no one joins you online.
Sorry?
It seems no one joins online.
Yeah, I think that maybe this session is finished. I'm gonna end the session. Do you normally do the afternoon session here?